From Music City, USA, it's David Hooper and Music Business Radio.
From the TuneIn Broadcasting Studios in Nashville, Tennessee, this is Music Business Radio, your backstage pass to the music business. I'm David Hooper, your host. With me today, two guests. Chris Cobb, he's the owner of Sellout Presents, a regional event management and promotions company, and also Josh Billu, he's the owner of a few clubs, including Exit In, Zydeco, and Marathon Music Works. Actually, you're the co-owner of Marathon Music Works along with Chris.
That is correct.
So today we are going to be diving into booking, promotion, club ownership, these things that are a little bit scary to musicians, and musicians are definitely opinionated on. Would you guys say?
I would agree.
Every musician I ask, they've got an opinion on club owners, and you guys are kind of the ambassadors for the club owners today.
I'm a promoter. I'm worse than a club owner.
You're both.
Now you're both, man.
Well, let's dive deep into that. Chris, how would you describe what it is that you do?
I book shows, basically. A couple different facets. I can book them for myself, or I have clients that I purchase talent for, and then also do some production work, a wide range of different production-related activities for live music and other events.
So when you say book them for yourself, you're actually taking the financial risk of producing a show?
Yeah, I guess that would be the difference between a promoter and a buyer. A promoter would risk their own money. A buyer would risk somebody else's.
I think it's always fun when you're playing with your own money.
I like it better because then I'm not accountable to anyone else.
And Josh, how about you?
I just own two clubs outright, Zydeco in Birmingham, Alabama, Exit In here in Nashville, Tennessee, and I am co-owner with Chris at Marathon.
So you're doing everything, probably, as a club owner.
Yeah, for better or worse.
We can clean the bathrooms.
Yeah, right. Yeah, club owners aren't just spending musicians' money, it turns out. There's actually a lot of work to it. We're going to kind of look into that as the show goes on. How did you start in the business, though? I imagine club ownership is probably not where you guys started.
There's a restaurant in Hillsborough Village here in Nashville called Jackson's that did an outdoor concert series years ago. And a friend of mine managed it, and for some reason he asked me to help him book it. And that's the story.
Did you have any...
No, I had no idea what I was doing.
So no idea, you were just like a warm body, happened to be in the room at the time.
I think I was just about to graduate from Belmont's music business program.
Okay, so you knew a little bit then.
No, not really.
Okay.
It is definitely education as you go along.
Is that kind of how it is? I mean, Marathon Music Works, which is a pretty big venue that you guys have now, it's 1,500 seats. There's still a learning experience, I would imagine. Even though you've been in the business for a while at this point, you're still learning things every day.
Oh, yeah. I mean, everything's kind of a trial and error. I mean, a little better at it now after doing it for a number of years, but it's still... Compare it to another business, every single show's different, every single event's different, thus every single night's different.
And the facility, the area where we are now over here, there's a lot to learn.
Yeah, I mean, 1,500 seats versus 300 seats, a huge difference in what you have to do to pack those seats in. So, Josh, how did you get started in the business? Was it something similar, just kind of a warm body in the room, and, hey, man, book this?
I actually played college football at the University of Georgia, and that's...
Big correlation there.
Well, that's where I get all my size from. Got hurt playing the game and still, had all this extra time, so I started working security for Rock Solid periodically.
So Rock Solid is like they provide security.
Rock Solid security, yeah, they do security throughout the Southeast, and actually, oddly enough, work for Marathon now.
Rock Solid security?
Rock Solid security.
I had no idea.
You're hiring your former boss.
Yeah, I guess in a way. So I would do different shows for them, security in the pit. I remember Seven Dust and, oddly enough, Oasis and Ben Harper with Jack Johnson opening, weird things like that, along with other college football players. And that correlated, being in Athens, Georgia, correlated to being a bouncer at clubs, and from there, bartending. And once you kind of got a little bit of knowledge, and goes on, presented with the opportunity to own a music venue, liked music, had been around it from that aspect of it, and thought, oh, yeah, this will be easy. And it wasn't.
Because you guys really are music fans. I mean, Josh, you said something to me before the show, and I thought this was brilliant. You said if this was all about money, we'd be booking cover acts and country bands. I was joking around earlier about, club owners and promoters having really bad reputation with musicians, and they do. But you guys are also music fans, though. You're actually trying to help promote music, and you're trying to have a good show for everybody. It's not just dollars in your pockets, because you could be booking the cover acts and country bands.
Yeah, I mean, we still have to make money at the end of the day, so there are some bands that, you know, some people might say were just done for money. Yeah, there are a few of those, but at the end of the day, I mean, it is about music, and for any room to have any kind of substance to it, it's got to have some shows that are wow factors, those things that are artistically acclaimed, even though not necessarily the biggest monetary winners for us.
Josh, you own a venue called Exit In Nashville, Tennessee. 40 years Exit In has been there. It's sort of like CBGB's of the South.
I've heard it referred to that a couple of times.
Probably by me, because I...
There you go.
Yeah,
Hey.
I mean, no, but all joking aside, I mean, it really is, it's an incredible venue, and you've also got this thing that you co-own with Chris called Marathon Music Works. Mm-hmm. So what about the reputation of Exit In? Do you think about that when you're booking, say, man, I've got 40 years? I mean, who are some of the people that have played at Exit In that you have a history of? I mean, I know the Police played there because Sting's wearing an Exit In shirt in one of the Police records.
Yeah. Obviously, they're, you know, from... I guess bands that we would consider local, Kings of Leon, Paramore, but then you go farther back, the great late, I guess, Etta James now.
Billy Joel. Steve Martin.
You're doing good with this. We were just in Steve Martin's book, I think. Had several pages written about Exit In.
Yeah, so Exit In has a huge history, and you want to continue that. How does that compare with something like Marathon Music Works, where you're trying to be the CBGBs of the South and be something that people are going to recognize here 40 years from now, hopefully?
Well, Exit In and Zydeco were both around, and I actually took them over. I didn't start either one. Zydeco has been around since 89. I've only had it for 10 years. Exit In, you know, had been around since 71. My whole purpose with those was it was a lot easier to kind of come in, see what somebody else had done, fix those things from a business standpoint that made it more financially stable, but at the same point in time, try not to mess with anything that made it what it was. Marathon, between Chris and I, gets to be my own screw up. I get to start everything from the start to finish. And, you know, it's very much taking some of those things that I had seen that Exit In and Zydeco, I just had to accept because that's how they were and that's how people knew them, and trying to address some of those on the front end with Marathon. We tried to kind of look at it, how could we make this room fun, a little bit different, so when we had artists in, they felt a little bit more at home.
You're listening to Music Business Radio. I'm your host, David Hooper. With me today, two guests, Chris Cobb, owner of Sellout Presents, a regional event management and promotions company, and also Josh Billu. He's the co-owner with Chris in a venue that seats 1,500 people called Marathon Music Works, also owns Exit In Nashville, Tennessee, and Zydeco in Birmingham, Alabama. Chris, you had been doing booking and promotions with a lot of other people, a lot of other venues, and you still do that. What made you want to get into the world of venue ownership?
I'm an entrepreneur by nature, and there was an obvious need here in Nashville for a mid-sized, multi-use event space that could host, you know, world-class tours and at the same time world-class events or wedding receptions and so on and so forth. So it was more of the recognition of a need here, and we looked for almost a couple of years before we found this space at Marathon.
Yeah, because at 1,500 people, I mean, not everybody's going to hold 1,500 people.
No.
It's tough to find a venue like that.
Yes. I mean, here in Nashville, our options are definitely limited when it came to anything of that size. You know, we recognized that the fact that City Hall was gone, really you just didn't have many mid-range options.
Do you guys have advice for somebody who might want to be in the club or the bar business? I mean, what are some things that you guys have learned that you think everybody would need to know?
Club or bar? Because
okay, two different businesses. Talk about it.
I mean, a bar to me, probably the thing that makes most bars successful more so than anything else is location. You've got to have a client base that it's a community. It's got to be seen as a community thing in order for it to be successful. A club's more of a destination, and then what you're selling is an event or a show. It's a lot more work. But ultimately, for anybody to jump down either one of those paths, I would tell you that, oddly enough, I go to college, get a business degree, think that's going to help me. Real world, nothing makes up for real world experience.
Work hard.
Yeah, Chris, you said something similar. I mean, you got out of Belmont with a music business degree, didn't really know a whole lot.
Yeah, maybe I knew 10% of what I needed to, and that's a great program. there's no replacement for that real world experience. And I don't know. Get yourself a job. Get in there. Work.
The internship.
Yeah, whatever. Get your foot in the door somehow and be there and make your presence noticed and work hard. You're going to have to work your way up.
And even as the owners, you guys are still there a lot, I would imagine. It's not like you're sitting in your penthouse suite and you never actually go down to the club. You're still there behind the bar sometimes.
My posh mansion.
Yeah, we were joking around about cleaning the toilets. I mean, you still sometimes as a club owner, you're doing whatever needs to be done, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, nobody's going to take care of it like you are. I mean, you can pay people all you want, but at the end of the day, I'm going to be the guy that walks through and notices that for some reason there's paint missing off the corner of the wall, or, that the sink's dripping. I mean, things that wouldn't necessarily bother anybody. It's probably brought out more of my OCD tendencies than need be.
Do you have complaints about that stuff from patrons? I mean, I've been to some pretty nasty places, and you wonder, like, how could some place get like this? Do the patrons care, or are they just there for the music?
Well, sometimes
I imagine there's more to the experience. Right?
Yeah, sometimes they do. I mean, Exit In it's a rock club. It's an old school rock club. There's some wonky things about it. Ultimately, we try to keep it clean and nice and put together, but if it was dolled up and fancy and we had chandeliers hanging, and it wouldn't be the Exit In anymore.
Well, compare that to Marathon, Chris.
Marathon's it's a different kind of facility. That's not a 40-year rock club by any means. It's not a rock club. It's a facility, and we built it to be as nice as we possibly could. We're constrained by real world issues like time and money, like everybody else. But it needs to be a nice facility, cleaner, prettier. What would you say?
Yeah, we've got some nifty light fixtures, some chandeliers.
Real chandeliers.
Yeah. A little bit more upscale, but that again is the experience that you're going to get from two different rooms. It's two totally different, and what Exit In is and what Exit In needs to be. It's a regular rock and roll club, something that's happening on a regular basis. And the things that go on at Marathon tend to be bigger shows, bigger events, and as such, you would expect it to be a little nicer, and it is.
And you do how many events a month at Marathon Music Works?
We separate it out between, concerts and events. Total, you're probably talking about an average of 7.
Okay, so 7 events. It's a venue that seats 1,500 people. Mm-hmm. Exit In, on the other hand, a little bit smaller, about a third of the size, and you're doing how many events?
We're averaging probably about 25.
So 25, it's running, it's working a whole lot more. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to get into the logistics of what it is to be a club owner. I want to talk numbers with you, Chris, because you brought in some sheets. This is fantastic. I mean, a lot of people, when they go to a packed show, they think, oh man, these guys must be making hand over fist money, but they don't understand the expenses that you guys have. So we're going to talk about the club business a little bit more in depth, talk about promoting shows and what you guys are doing to make money in the music business. David Hooper here, Music Business Radio. 2 guests, Chris Cobb and Josh Billu. More from these guys when we come back on Music Business Radio.
Lightning 100 presents the Miller Made Music Concert Series, live at Cannery Ballroom Wednesday, March 6th. They might be giants. Brooklyn Originals, They Might Be Giants, are on tour with a new show. Boundless creativity, rowdy and spontaneous performance, combined with their vast repertoire of memorable songs, has made their live shows the thing of legend. They Might Be Giants, with special guest Moon Hooch. Cannery Ballroom Wednesday, March 6th.
Istanbul was Constantinople, now it's Istanbul, not Constantinople. Been a long time gone, a Constantinople. Why did Constantinople get the works? That's nobody's business but the turd.
Get your tickets now on the concert calendar at lightning100.com.
Triangle Man, Triangle Man, Triangle Man hates Particle Man. They have a fight, Triangle wins, Triangle Man.
Brought to you by Lightning 100 and Miller Lite as part of the Miller Made Music Concert Series.
Now back to Music Business Radio on Lightning 100.
Hey, this is Pete Yorn, and you're listening to Music Business Radio.
From Nashville, Tennessee, it's Music Business Radio. I'm your host, David Hooper, and with me today, 2 guests. Chris Cobb is the owner of Sellout Presents, a regional event management and promotions company. Also, Josh Billu. He was involved with 3 clubs, the Exit In Nashville, Tennessee, Zydeco in Birmingham, Alabama. He's also co-owner, along with Chris, of Marathon Music Works, a 1,500-seat venue in Nashville, Tennessee. Now, Chris, you've promoted more than 1,000 events in the Southeast, and I'd like to talk about some of those just in general. First off, let's talk about risk. Who takes the risk on an event? Is it the band performing? Is it the promoter? Is it the venue?
I guess in theory, everybody's taking some risk, but mainly promoters, they carry the majority of the risk in most scenarios. As it gets a little smaller into the smaller size clubs, maybe more often the venue than a promoter. Generally speaking, in the concert business, promoter is the one taking the risk.
I guess the venue kind of is the promoter on that level.
Exactly.
Clubs.
A lot of times, yeah.
So how do these shows come together? Does a band come to you, or are you putting them together? You see like a hot act, it's like, man, I think it'd be great to bring, Beastie Boys to town, let's say. Is that how it works, or do they approach you?
Generally, they approach us. On the club level, we're dealing with what would be referred to as routing dates most of the time.
Explain that.
Yeah, so that's touring lingo. The way it goes down is, you've got maybe your band at the center, or your band and your band's manager, and they decide for whatever reason that they need to go out and do a tour to promote a new product or to sell some merchandise or whatever the case may be. Generally, it's when there's a product being released, a CD or whatnot. So at that point is when the agent comes into play. It's the agent's job to get them shows, to book these gigs, and to make it happen. So those start with anchor dates. An anchor date would be a big money date, a college show or a private show or a festival show, where they're going to go out and they're going to pick up a good guarantee on that night. So, for example, you get a band that's based out of New York, and they've got an anchor down in Florida. They decide they need a tour. The agent gets them a nice festival down in Florida. They've got to get there. So at that point, the agent will reach out to clubs, to buyers and promoters and club owners, whoever may hold the calendar for these facilities that are physically in between New York and Florida. And
so it's just making the numbers work, right? I mean, just you're basically paying for your trip down to Florida.
No, not necessarily. I mean, the tour's got a nut to cover, sure. But, what they're trying to do is they're trying to get from point A to point B, and club shows generally fall in between. It's just generally, again, what you would call a routed date in between a couple of shows, and so, they probably can take a little less money to make that happen. And again, in that scenario, that's when the agent will call us, will call a buyer or a promoter or a club and say, hey, such and such, whoever the case may be, Kathleen Edwards is touring through Nashville. We've got 5 dates we want to hold at your venue, or multiple venues if you're a promoter potentially. And then that starts the process. You put down the holds, and the next step would be an offer. The buyer would submit an offer into the agent, which they would in turn turn back over to the manager. And then they approve and disapprove offers, and then the agents will kick back to the buyers and negotiate, and then eventually contract dates. And then, boom, from there it goes into trying to sell tickets and marketing.
How do you do that?
How do we market?
Yeah. Does it depend on the show? I mean, are there some things that are so hot you don't even have to market them because they've got such great word of mouth?
Absolutely. There's a show at Exit In right now, an artist called Boyce Avenue. I don't know if you're familiar or not, but they do covers of pop tunes, and they have millions of views on YouTube, and that is the promotion for that show. We have done, I think at this point, 0 advertising, and that show is, Josh, less than 100 tickets from sold out, and it's a month away.
I think it's less than 30 tickets from sold out.
Yeah, you're right. Those are few and far between, honestly, but they're awesome. We love them. Depends on the fan base. Who are these people? Again, use the Kathleen Edwards example because that show, we just had that show at Exit In over the weekend here in Nashville, and we promoted that show heavily here on Lightning 100 because we feel like those fans listen to Lightning 100.
So that's our home station where we record Music Business Radio. So good we could help you out like that.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
But no, what happens then? I mean, you're doing more, I guess, than just throwing a bunch of advertising, right?
Well, yes and no. We have an advertising budget for every show, and again, there's those rare scenarios like Boyce Avenue where we don't spend it, but generally we spend the whole thing, or even maybe a little more. So yeah, I mean, we do more, but for an artist who does have some airplay, a real quick and easy formula would be, let's run some spots and let's talk to promotions, and hopefully the station supports this artist. Maybe we can do an interview, maybe we can give away some tickets in trade to the station that they can push out to their fans, and we can do some contesting. We're definitely going to do some web. I think we do Facebook ads for, 90% of our shows at this point. Mm-hmm. And then, there's always that street aspect that you just can't get away from. I mean, posters are invaluable, so we always try to do that too.
And with that, you certainly are benefited with an artist that is already known. You can't just take, I know a lot of bands off the street are probably contacting you guys. Hey, man, give me a show. But there's maybe nothing you can do at that point.
Man, they've got to start their own fan base. I mean, that's on them. Even if you're bringing out 15 people to start, you got to start that yourself. If you don't believe in yourself and you're not going to promote yourself, nobody else is.
You're listening to Music Business Radio. I'm your host, David Hooper. With me today, 2 guests. Chris Cobb, owner of Sellout Presents, a regional event management and promotions company. Also, Josh Billu owns 3 clubs. Exit in Nashville, Tennessee. Zydeco in Birmingham, Alabama. He's co-owner with Chris of Marathon Music Works, a 1,500-seat venue in Nashville, Tennessee. So, Chris, let's dive into some numbers. Can we just take just an average show, or if you've got one that you want to use as an example, what kind of money's involved here? What can you make and what can you lose?
Look at like the marathon examples, 1,500 cap shows, somewhere in that world. And again, there's no real average. Every show's a little different, but generally speaking, you're probably talking about, and there's a lot of expenses. I don't know if you want to maybe go through.
We probably don't have time to go through all of them, but just let's kind of lump some of them up. It's more than people would expect.
Absolutely. I mean, you've got your talent, you've got your advertising, which we've touched on, you've got insurance, you've got hospitality, you've got cleanup, you've got production, stage, sound, lighting, you've got labor, stage hands, and technical people who run consoles and things of that nature. You've got licensing, ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, all those things. So, a show over there, there's probably $30,000 tied up in a single show over there.
So that means a lot of people have to come to make that money back, I would imagine.
Well, it depends on the ticket price, but yeah, I mean, if you're not selling, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the average would be, but if you're not selling 75, 80%, maybe even a little north of that of the house, you're probably losing money.
So I'm just going to take a non-music industry just to throw some numbers out here, like the cruise ship industry, for example. Let's say a cruise costs $1,000 to go to Jamaica, wherever you're going. That industry, they know that if you spend $1,000 on a cruise, you're going to spend another $1,000 on the ship, whether it be gaming, whether it be alcohol, whether it be food or room service. Do you guys have something similar where you kind of expect people to pay more than the ticket price on either, fried cheese and beer or whatever it is that you're selling, T-shirts, other things that you have kind of maybe a piece of?
I wish we did, but, so many shows, I guess, taking your cruise ship example, you've probably got a certain demographic that's going to go on cruises. Ultimately, what we're selling isn't Exit In or Marathon or Zydeco. It's the event itself. So that crowd may vary greatly from show to show. Thus, the tendencies of the patrons, the concert goers, is going to vary as well. And those are all considerations that go into booking every single show, because you may book it and it may be very well attended, but again, the revenue that you generate off of it from a bar standpoint or from a venue standpoint, concessions, it's not near as great as that of a show that was not as well attended.
Well, like an all-ages show, I know would affect a lot of things. You can't serve alcohol, is that correct?
That's correct, yeah. That's a good example of a show where you've already taken out a substantial amount of the possible income that you could make that evening. You factor that in with the risk that goes in with producing a show, and then you had to evaluate, is it worth it?
Is it worth it? How do you guys decide? Because I imagine, with as many events as you guys are doing every month, how you can't possibly keep track of everything.
Sometimes we get it wrong. Honestly, unfortunately, we don't get all of them right. If we did, my posh mansion over there in East Nashville,
right,
I would be able to get some nicer blinds. But it is the closest thing to educated gambling that you could probably go with. And it's a risk, just like anything else that you do in the business world. We try to make our best decisions, evaluate not only the artist, but the customer that's going to come along with that, and assess, is it something that in the long run is good for us.
Well, give me what you guys kind of run through when, let's say I call you up and say, hey, I got band XYZ and I want to do a show at one of your venues. Are you looking at like YouTube followers? Are you asking your friends? Are you listening to what's on the radio, what's on MTV? How are you finding out what's popular, making that education?
In this example, are you the agent, the band, or are you just a promoter?
Well, I'm just going to say, I don't know. What am I?
You should be the agent.
Okay, I'm the agent. Because you can really trust those guys to give you the straight truth.
Well, part of what we do is relationships, and, having a good relationship with an agent, sometimes you're going to take more risk because of that. You trust their opinion, you trust their knowledge, and ideally it's somebody that you're working with on a regular basis. They're working for the artist, but they're also working for the venue. They have to keep coming back to us to hand us stuff, too. Yeah. So it's not like you can 100% trust them.
They get it wrong sometimes, too, though.
They do. And there are certain markets they assume because it did this in another market, it'll work well here.
Yeah, that happens all the time, I would imagine.
Oh, yeah.
Memphis, for example, a lot more R&B shows there. You don't see them coming up through Nashville.
No.
At this point, collectively, Josh and I have done a lot of shows, and so there's just a lot of inherent knowledge there. There's a lot of acts that we've already worked with, or work with the agent, like he said, or maybe, we look at the label that they're on. There's definitely little clues that you can look at and say, well, like Josh said, relationship-based. I mean, certain agents, even if they call you about something you've never heard of, you know, for the past 10 years, every time they called you about something you never heard of, everyone had heard of it 12 months later. So you pay attention to that stuff.
Yeah, because you have to be cutting edge, right?
Sometimes. I mean, on the smaller clubs level, definitely, at times. You know, there's all sorts of things to check out. I mean, you know, we can go and look at Polestar, which is an industry, what would you call Polestar?
Magazine data collection service.
Database where we go in and look at
of the live event industry.
Yeah, we go and take a look at tours. Tours report in how many tickets they sold and how much they grossed, and so we can look at that stuff. We can look at airplay. We can go and look at sound scans. We listen to the radio. You know, we do pay attention to what's going on out there. We have to. I mean, it's like Josh said earlier. It's impossible to keep up with everything in this day and age, but to some extent, you just got to keep your eyes and ears open.
Well, for the band out there listening, what is the one thing that a band or musician could do to get booked? What's the one thing that they could just have in order that would get your attention?
Know who and what they're talking about. I mean, I get more random phone calls and emails where you can tell it was just a form email or form letter. We actually had somebody just literally the other day leave a message on our answering machine for Exit In wanting to talk to somebody from 12th and Porter about booking, which is another club here in Nashville.
Right.
You know, and dumb mistake. Probably had just called 12th and Porter, was going through their mind. I just talked to 12th and Porter. I'm trying to get a gig. But obviously, I'm not going to call them back. I've gotten emails before from people that they literally, you can tell they copied and pasted an email. It's addressed to the Exit In. You read all through it, and then it's talking about Rhythm and Brews in Chattanooga in the body, and it, you know, where they just changed something out.
The mail merge did it for
and those are things that, you know, ultimately, if we're going to take the time to look at everything, because we get so many submissions, it needs to be correct. And, you know, I understand sometimes it's difficult and frustrating to be in a situation where you're reaching out to all these people and you don't necessarily get something back, but the idea is to separate yourself from the herd, making sure that your information's correct, you know who you're trying to get in touch with and what about, and then having a concise thing with your band explaining it leads to a booking.
So, Josh, you've been in this business for almost a decade. Chris, you've done over 1,000 shows. You've been in the business for a while as well. When we come back, I'm going to get you guys to give us some stories because I know you've got them. I want to hear the highlights. I want to hear the lowlights. You're listening to Music Business Radio. Two guests today, Chris Cobb and Josh Billu. We're talking about live event promotion, club ownership, and booking. More from these guys when we come back.
Lightning 100's One Night Stand live at Zanies is proud to present Girl on Girl Comedy.
He wasn't seeing me, though, restraining order and all. You break into a guy's house one time, they get all freaked out about it. I just wanted to watch him sleep. Is that so crazy?
Live at Zanies, Girl on Girl Comedy. Tickets are available by calling the Zanies box office or online at zanies.com.
I was being quiet.
Zanies and Lightning 100 present the funniest one-night stand without the walk of shame.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dave Grohl of the Foo Fighters. You're listening to Music Business Radio.
From Nashville, Tennessee, the TuneIn Broadcasting Studios, this is Music Business Radio. I'm your host, David Hooper. With me today, two guests. Chris Cobb, owner of Sellout Presents, a regional event management and promotions company. He's done over 1,000 concerts in the Southeast. You haven't done them, actually, Chris. You've promoted them.
What does done them mean?
Well, you're an artist or something. But you're not. You're much bigger than an artist. You're a promoter. And Josh Billu, he's the owner of Exit In Nashville, Tennessee, Zydeco in Birmingham, Alabama, and co-owner with Chris of Marathon Music Works, the 1,500-seat venue in Nashville, Tennessee. I want to kind of dig deeper into the money. We were talking about that in the last section. First of all, let's just start with the biggest chunk, or you would think it would be the biggest chunk, what the artist makes. Somebody who comes into like a 500-seat venue such as Exit In, Josh, in Nashville, Tennessee, sell it out, what are they going to walk away with?
The easier answer now is probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $500 to $7,500. But, you know, that's greatly changed in the last 5 years because ticket prices have increased. We've gone from probably 5-6 years ago, you'd see a national touring act and a $10 to $15 ticket, 15 being more on the high end. And now it's not uncommon to see, you know, a $20 ticket. So the gross has definitely gone up. The potential's gone up, but so has that initial risk with the actual artist talent.
So where does the money go? The artist is taking some of it. Who are the other players that are actually getting paid when it comes to a show? Because we talked about the risk earlier, Chris. There's a lot of risk for a show like this when you bring it to town.
Sure. Well, you know, we kind of ran through those all of the related expenses earlier. I mean, you know, it can cost a lot to make a concert or an event happen, but you know, I think artists want to walk out with at least 50% of the net.
Got a manager involved there?
Yeah. I mean,
agent is going to get a little bit of money?
Yeah, now that money's coming out of the artist money, so, we don't really see that on the show side. I don't know, it's 15%, 20% maybe, somewhere in that range for each of those guys.
Yeah.
So the artist isn't making as much money as maybe you would think?
No, I don't think anybody is.
How about the promoters? What kind of...
your promoter profit is 15%. To try and explain the way that works, if you add up all of your show expenses, everything we went through earlier, your talent, your advertising, your security, yada, 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 and then you take 15% of that, that's, in theory, your promoter profit, but you have to sell enough tickets to get to that point. You have to generate the revenues to get there. So the promoter doesn't make a dime until every single other expense has been covered 100%.
How often does that happen?
That we cover all the expenses?
Yeah.
I don't, I've never gone.
Hopefully more times than you don't cover all expenses.
Well, I don't know. I think it is these days, for me at least. I think somebody at some point told me it was like 40 win, 40 lose, and 20 break even. And, what we try to do is, if you're going to win, you try to win as much as you can. And if you're going to lose, you try to cut those losses on the front end. Generally, we know going into a show if it's going to win or lose. So we can kind of control expenses to some extent. If we're going to go in and take a bath, generally the artist will work with us. Maybe we can cut down and not spend. Maybe they don't need their Starbucks that day. So there's ways to kind of maximize profits and minimize losses too.
How do you know going into it whether it's going to be a win or loss? I know we talked earlier about it kind of being gambling in a way. Is there anything that makes it where it's not just like rolling the dice and waiting for like a random outcome?
Yeah, I mean, we're still rolling the dice on the front end, but in my world, we sell advanced tickets on a smaller level and in some other maybe secondary markets or whatnot. Sometimes that doesn't happen as much, but at Exit In, at Marathon, at venues 500 and above, and we're selling advanced tickets and we're tracking it. We're watching it every 3 days. We've got, I've got 2 boards in my office with big charts of counts on them. So we track sales and we watch spikes and we watch trends and, so we can generally tell rolling in how it's going to be. Walk up is always the question mark, the big variable there.
Oh, yeah.
But, we've watched, at least, from what I've dealt with, we've watched the walk-up numbers really decrease over the past 5 years. It's more in advance.
So you have a percentage, I guess, of what you expect to sell in advance, and then you kind of estimate the walk-up numbers then?
Yeah, and it varies greatly for depending on the show. Certain types of shows and certain artists, you can definitely count on a better walk-up than others. We did a show this weekend where I think walk-up as compared to advance was 10%. Sometimes you'll see 100% walk-up, and it just depends on the type of show and the artist.
You're listening to Music Business Radio. I'm your host, David Hooper. With me today, I've got 2 guests. Chris Cobb, owner of Sellout Presents, a regional event management and promotions company. Also, Josh Billu. He's the owner of 3 clubs in Nashville, Exit In, Birmingham, Alabama. He's got Zydeco, and also co-owner of Marathon Music Works, a 1,500-seat venue, along with Chris. Josh, 2 distinct markets, Birmingham, Alabama, and Nashville, Tennessee, also known as Music City, USA. Is that a good or bad thing?
It's a good thing. To touch on a point that we talked about earlier in the program, when it comes to advertising, we've got a much more educated group of people here in Nashville that keep up on their own with the music community and live music. You can do a lot more with less money here in terms of advertising as compared to a market like Birmingham. You kind of got to force feed those guys sometimes.
So music isn't as important of a part of the culture, I guess. They've got Angry Birds.
Angry Birds.
They've got whatever people do, movies.
I think it's just Alabama and Auburn football. I think it's kind of that's the main thing in the state of Alabama. But they do care about music. It's just it's not as much of a priority in Alabama. Cover bands do incredibly well because people want to come in, and if they're going to be entertained, they want to be entertained with a bunch of songs that they're familiar with, as opposed to going to see an artist they know, but they only like 1 or 2 songs. It's a more justifiable expense. Nashville is not necessarily that way. Nashville, more people are inclined to see what the next big thing is. They kept up with it. It's important to them to have seen that show in a small room.
They've got a friend in the band, maybe.
Yeah. They've read about it in Paste or on Pitchfork.
Yeah. Well, it is a much hipper audience. It's kind of like if you wanted the latest in vegetarian food. California's going to know more about that before the rest of the country. Nashville is pretty hip on their music.
Yeah. I mean, and so for the most part, it does make it easier. It also makes it much more competitive to try to stay on top of it, to book some of these newer acts. And sometimes you'll see them do significantly better in Nashville than they will other places on tour just because it's Nashville and so many people are aware of it. And other times, that's definitely not the case.
Does Nashville move faster?
On a significant chunk of artists, not necessarily everything. It tends to be that if it's too poppy, I guess, Nashville's a little bit slower to react. But those things on our level that are more independent, more organic, I guess, there's a quicker grasp.
Chris, you've done over 1,000 shows. There I go, talking about done. You promoted over 1,000 shows. Give me a story.
I almost got thrown in the river here in Nashville once. That was cool, from the Dancin In The District stage. I'll leave that at that.
So this is like an outdoor concert.
Yeah.
Something went horribly wrong, I guess.
Series, long summer series, long standing here in Nashville. A bunch of great artists. Kanye West played that thing. Blondie. I don't know. Can't go on and on. Cake.
So were people mad about the promotion of the show?
No, I think that an engineer was angry with me, actually, a sound guy, and picked me up and almost chunked me into the river. I saw a pedal board go in the river down there, an artist's pedal board that another sound engineer was upset with. I don't know, man. Stories.
And that's not a good idea. Let's just you probably won't work with that guy again. Is that safe to say?
I wish that were true, but I still work with him today, actually.
So there is forgiveness as long as you're a good engineer and you got skills.
I think that those actions were justified in my hindsight of the situation.
Chris, you're scaring me a little bit.
Sorry, man.
I feel like there may be more to the story.
There is. You asked for stories, but I can't divulge names and things, David.
Okay, Josh, what you got for me? Give me a story of all that you've seen in the club.
Of all that I've seen?
Yeah. Just what's something that's the most interesting?
Oh, I got another one.
Most interesting.
I got an exit in story that's good.
You got an exit in story?
Toilet.
The toilet.
Halloween. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, take that one. I'm going to let you go first.
So this is your club, Josh, and you're going to...
I'm going to let Chris take
give it over to Chris. All right, Chris, what you got? Toilet, Halloween?
I don't remember the artist. Do you?
Not a clue, no.
It was Halloween. I think it was Halloween. For some reason, in my mind, it's definitely Halloween.
It'll be Halloween for the purpose of the story.
There we go. And a friend of mine comes out of the women's room there in Exit In and is like waving me down across the room, flailing her arms and like, what's going on? Like, get over here, and she just leads me to the restroom and opens the door. And the first thing I see is just water, like probably a good inch or two of water everywhere and flowing. So I dig deeper a little further. She gets everyone out of there for me, and we go in, and one of the toilets in the stall is on the ground, on its side, ripped off of the wall entirely, and there's water just pouring out of the wall. That's a cool story. Apparently, I found out later that a girl was standing on the toilet to talk to her friend in the next stall and got off balance.
Girls in restrooms and clubs are pretty destructive force.
There's another thing for your expense then. You better
man.
Calculate that.
Damage.
Yeah.
Club damage. Ooh.
Does that stuff happen? Do you guys have pretty orderly crowds?
Depends on the show. I mean, we did an Asking Alexandria show in Zydeco. Heck, it hadn't even been a year. It's a lower ceiling. And for some reason, the band on the last song, told the audience to rip the ceiling out. So they proceeded to rip the entire ceiling out.
Drop ceiling?
Yeah.
And it's tore down.
Ripped it all out, man. I've never seen anything like it. So, yeah, it happens on certain shows. You don't want it to. Certain artists, you can kind of expect that there's going to be more damage, there's more risk than not. But, ultimately, the artist has a lot of power when he's on stage.
Yeah, apparently. Well, speaking of power, I'm going to hand the power over to you guys for this next section. It's something we call Dave's Demo Derby. This is where artists from around the world, Music Business Radio listeners, send us their CDs. We reach into the mailbag, play one of them, see what kind of music it contains. You guys ready for this?
I want to tell more stories. No, yes, we're ready.
Absolute. Plus, we'll have more stories by Chris when we come back.
Your mission, should you accept it, enlist in Green Tie Affair.
Green Tie Affair is a fundraiser for the Tennessee Environmental Council, which educates and advocates for the conservation and improvement of Tennessee's environment and public health. This year's theme is Mission Green at University Club of Nashville. On Friday, March 22nd at 7 p.m., celebrate green and honor those who serve. Enjoy appetizers, cash bar, and auction, including a home solar array. To learn more, visit tectn.org or teamgreenadventures.com.
Now back to Music Business Radio on Lightning 100.
Hey guys, this is Dave Barnes. My life was crazy. I couldn't figure anything out. I'd play shows and nobody would show up. I forget my guitar sometimes, but then I started listening to Music Business Radio and everything changed. Thanks, guys.
From Nashville, Tennessee, it's Music Business Radio. I'm your host, David Hooper. Now it's time for that part of the show we call Dave's Demo Derby. I've got two guests today. Chris Cobb, he's the owner of Sellout Presents, a regional event management and promotions company. Also, Josh Billu, he's club owner, Exit in Nashville, Tennessee, Zydeco in Birmingham, Alabama, and along with Chris, owns Marathon Music Works, a 1,500-seat venue in Nashville. Got some demos from Music Business Radio listeners between us. We talked about giving you back the power, and here's what we've got here for you to do. We're going to play these demos, going to let you critique them after about 90 seconds. Fair enough?
Works for me.
All right. Use your power wisely, gentlemen. South Cry is the band out of Lambtown, Brazil. Mayfly is the song.
Brazil.
From Lambtown, Brazil, that is South Cry. If you like him, it's at southcry.com. How about it, guys?
To be honest with you, I was a little disappointed. Thought it was going to be in Portuguese.
Oh, that was an all right song.
If I hadn't have said Lambtown, Brazil,
I probably wouldn't have gone Portuguese. I mean, you got my hopes up with that, and then it was like,
Yeah, everything about that's average.
Okay, how so? I mean, be more specific. What could they have done to make it better?
Well, it all starts with a song, right? And that's an okay song. It's just okay, you know? It's just an average
Not necessarily something you'd remember here at the end of this, though?
No. I mean, I'm not going to wake up with that stuck in my head tonight, I don't think. I want to know who sends CDs, by the way. I mean,
I still like
can we touch on that?
I like getting a CD.
Well, you know what? We can touch on that. It's actually something interesting. We make people send CDs because what we've found is that these guys just didn't know how to send audio that we could actually play on the radio.
Yeah.
Now, that's changing now. We've got more and more people asking, and we're probably going to change that over. But it was just an issue if somebody would send something like, real audio or some format from like 20 years ago. We'd be like, we can't do anything with this. So.
Yeah. For your purposes, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't want CDs. Josh likes them.
I like having CDs only because it shows a financial commitment that they actually took the time to send this physically to me. They mailed it. It's something I've got.
It's kind of a filter.
How do you play it when you get it?
Put it in the computer, man. I got a CD.
That's what you do?
ROM, yeah.
And you wouldn't rather just go to MySpace and...
Oh, no, I'm not saying I wouldn't rather that. I'm just saying,
like
this, if they send you a CD, there's a lot of effort in doing that.
There's an investment.
Yeah, I mean, if they're going to invest the time to send me that, I need to invest the time to listen to it.
So, Chris, you saying you don't have a CD player?
No, I do. I've got a CD player at home and in my car, but if I'm being solicited by an artist, I would prefer they send me a link.
Okay. I can completely get that.
I like CDs, but generally when I get a CD, it's when we've booked something and I like it and I actually reach out to the label or the agent and say, hey, can you send me a copy of this because I want to listen to the whole thing on my own time.
Now, how about for the rest of the press materials? Like, what kind of information do you need to see when you go to a link? Is it the same as you'd want on a regular paper press kit?
The first thing I look at is shows. I mean, what have they done? What are they doing currently? What do they have coming up as far as shows? Friends, likes, traction on their page. What entities and bands are on their page? Who are they, quote unquote, related to or whatnot?
What is the number one thing somebody could put in a press kit that would convince you to book them?
Cash.
Cover the show.
Show information. You know, more often than not, bands they want to tell you everything about their music, but they don't want to tell you anything about what they've done, where they've played. That's the information that always gets left out. And every band wants to play the biggest stage possible, but determining whether or not they're ready to do that or not falls on the promoter or the venue. I'm sure there's some bands that would play to 50 people that would love to play in an arena gig if they ever got that opportunity, but that doesn't mean that they're ready for that, or anybody would show up even if it was something where they got an opening slot.
Right.
So it's just one of those things where, given your body of work, where you've played, the shows that you've done, there's a value in that, and that's something that's an important part of the press kit that always gets left out.
So listen up, all you bands out there. Next up is the Burning River Ramblers. These guys are out of Cleveland, Ohio, and the song Destination Ohio.
The bus station was great, with blue moods all around. I never seen those faces all so different from my own. I was on my way to a new scene in my own film. I've been battling confusion, the villain of the show. As I stepped on the bus and took my seat for a long ride, the driver stood up to say we're gonna be headed towards the other side. So I turned on my tunes to step away from the small talk. I left the twilight zone with everything I owned I could fit in my bag, yeah. My reflection staring back at me as I look out to the cars. They're flying past and fast forward while I slow down, yeah. I've been someone who's not the same. I've been holding myself in, but I'm headed for my new home for the final showdown. We're showdown. And I know it's been a while since I've come to my senses, yeah. Well, I know what I want. Well, I know where I wanna go. Destination Ohio. And I got that tingling in my toes. That old bus will be no more. Well, I won't be the same I was before.
This is funny. It's called the Burning River Ramblers, and I think that's an appropriate name for the song because I felt like it was like, you've seen those old cartoons where they put like a dollar bill on like a fishing line, and you almost get it, and then you just reels it, and I kept thinking we were going to get to the chorus, but it did keep me listening.
I mean,
so anyway,
it takes a while to get to Ohio.
Enough.
Or across Ohio.
And it's kind of, have you guys actually ever driven there? Because it's kind of like the drive. It just seems to last long.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's at least 8 or 10 hours to get to Cleveland. So how about it, guys?
I liked it.
You would.
Yeah, I know you were going to say that.
Okay, what did you like about it? You didn't like the first one? You liked
well, you know, it's easier now that we get to compare some stuff, I think. But if we're going back to these CDs, this is nice. This is nice packaging. You're talking about an investment, or you know, that
agree. That is better packaging.
That's nice. I mean, this looks nice.
Okay, so this thing is like a what do you call this? Like an Echo case, or
yeah, I don't remember what
they call these anymore.
It's nice. It looks great. It's full color art. It's I don't know. I thought the production value was better compared to the first song that we heard. And then you know, I perused this one-page release that came along with it, and I know their publicist personally. So
okay, so that helps.
But that happens a lot. I'm being serious. You know, I'll scan over stuff, and if I actually know someone involved, then probably give them a call and find out what the real scoop is on the band.
That happens all the time in here. People will be looking through the liner notes and say, oh, I know the guy who played bass on this, or I know the producer, or I know that it's, you know, we talk about 6 degrees. There's probably about 3 degrees in music. So how about it, Josh?
Again, my one complaint was it doesn't give you a lot of, you actually read the one sheet on it, and it didn't give you a lot of information on their body of work. It mentioned 2 rooms, didn't really tell you anything about them. Were they opening shows? Is that all they've done? There was a mention that they were, I think, in the Cleveland Plains Dealer top 25 bands to watch. Is that only in Cleveland? Is that in Ohio? I don't know.
Yeah, Cleveland Plain Dealer is like the newspaper up there.
Yeah, but I mean, their top 25 bands to watch, is that only around Cleveland? Is that in all of Ohio? Is that, I don't know, the Midwest, I guess a little bit more information, a little less fluff, might have been more inclined. But to me, it sounds like other bands that I've heard before, and it wasn't anything that was incredibly memorable. It wasn't bad. It just wasn't memorable.
With that said, though, if those guys were to come here and they're selling tickets, I mean, you guys don't like everything you book, right?
Oh, without a doubt, I don't like
most of what I book. As a matter of fact, if I like it, that's the kiss of death, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, because of a different taste, and it really is about, having a good time for people. That's what you're in the business of.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, Chris and I kind of talked about it before. I mean, more often than not, if it's a show that you really like, an artist you really like, you don't want to book it. I mean, kind of ruins that. We're music fans too. Working with somebody, sometimes it ruins it.
Well, that was actually off the air, so I'm not going to tell the story, maybe, Chris, but it's just sometimes you meet people that you really appreciate, and then they're different than you thought they were.
Yeah, I don't want to name any names, but I mean, it's happened. I've had multiple experiences where, I've been a fan of a band or an artist for a long time, and then, finally am blessed with the experience of working with them years later, something you never thought was going to happen as a kid or whatever, and then they turn out not to be the most friendly person in the world, and that ruins all those records that you loved.
Definitely doesn't help that kid in you that wants to be impressed. Right?
They're working. And, I mean, it's hard sometimes to accept it, but you've got to take the fan out of it and accept the fact that they're doing a job when they're there from our standpoint, just like we have to do a job. And you can't it's hard, but you can't get caught up in the celebrity, I guess, of it.
Well, are most people in the business pretty cool? Agents, artists, bookers, everybody that you deal with, they're pretty cool?
Ooh, that is a loaded question.
Yeah, big time. It's just like everything else. I mean, some people are super cool and some people are super not. And I don't know. Is the music industry full of? Is there a higher percentage of cool people? I don't think so. I think it's just like any other industry.
Yeah,
there's great people and not so great people.
Okay, so before we move on, bottom line, would you book these guys? Could you find a place for them?
Potentially, I could definitely see them opening a club show in Nashville.
I would much rather give an opening spot to a local band in Nashville anytime I possibly could, because, it helps our scene out.
Perfect segue, because the next guy from the Demo Derby is local. So if you like it, are you going to book it?
Yeah.
Okay, we haven't heard it yet. Here we go. This is the Myers Brothers Band out of Nashville, Tennessee, and the song is called Happy.
They don't look happy.
Well, I never spent so many nights so lonely as I have here all alone in Nashville. 'Cause you're not here and I'm not there and we're not anywhere. And if this keeps up, I'll go crazy. 'Cause you are it's only been a few months, but without you here, time moves so slow. So tonight I sing to you from far away, and I hope for better days to come. 'Cause you are the only one who makes me happy. Yeah, you are the only one who makes me happy.
Out of Nashville, Tennessee, it's the Myers Brothers Band. The song Happy. All right, Josh, we'll put you on the spot. Said if you liked him, you'd book him.
Well, I got to say, starting off out of our packaging thus far, that was definitely the most professional. They did look happy in the photo, but I did like the dogs, and I kind of like the song. I mean, we could probably find an opening spot for those guys.
Chris, what do you think about them?
It was good. I mean, it's hard to separate my personal taste, when I'm listening to music, and it's not my personal taste, but, it was a good song, and
I think he's got a great voice.
Sounded good. Absolutely. You know, I mean,
there are probably more things that we can pair that up with than other things, I would imagine, that we've listened to today.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are probably a lot of opportunities for these guys to play some shows.
Any final thoughts, guys? What people need to know about your industry, or just something that, I mean, you got the radio. We're just going to open up the mic so you can say anything that you want, actually.
Yeah, support live music. Come see shows. Thank you. Come see live music, please.
Lots of live music.
I think that's great advice, because wherever you are, no matter if you're listening to this in Nashville, Tennessee, somewhere on broadcast radio, on the internet, via podcast, in Brazil, I mean, live music, that's where it all starts. Because before you can tour, you got to play your own scene, and you go out and you play live. It's the quickest way to make money in the music industry, and you support your scene when you do that. So I agree, guys. Go out and support live music. Thank you so much for being here. How can people get in touch with you?
All my contact info is on the Marathon Music Works website, which is marathonmusicworks.com. Best way to get me. Email.
You can get a hold of me through ExitIn at exitin.com, EXITIN.com.
Chris Cobb, owner of Sellout Presents, and Josh Billu, owner of Exit In, Zydeco, and with Chris, co-owner of Marathon Music Works. Guys, appreciate you being here. Thanks for sending things in for the demo derby, everybody, and thank you for listening. For more from us, check us out online at musicbusinessradio.com.
Thanks for listening to Music Business Radio, a production of Tuned In Broadcasting Incorporated, Nashville, Tennessee. Recorded in the WRLT Lightning 100 studios. Music Business Radio is produced by Gary Crane, David Hooper, and Dan Buckley. Hosted by David Hooper. Special technical assistance by Tom Hansen. With Pro Tools post-production by Justin Hamill and Dan Buckley. And Lester chauffeured the band. For information on syndication, guest booking, demo derby music, or downloading previous episodes, visit musicbusinessradio.com.
Music Business